Good. What is it? Late afternoon? Late afternoon, everybody. My name is the Weebo Jones. This is debate night on a Saturday because I have nothing better to do. We have the Liberal Sanity Project with us tonight again. Welcome back, Lispy. And we have NotGayCaleb for the first time ever on this channel, and he and Lispy will be debating the Electoral College again. Well, for one, it's again, but the other person, this is his first time. Anyway, so you all know the rules. Remember, everyone, you can ask your questions of the debaters in the chat, where I will take them down and ask them intermittently throughout the stream if there's a lull or if we need to move on to another topic and stuff like that. Isn't tight. But other than that, I'm going to let the debaters talk pretty much free reign. Just make sure you guys don't get too out of hand, otherwise I will step in. Without further ado, do what you do.
Okay, Lispy, since you're making the affirmative or the positive repercussion side, I would like to hear your argument. Go first.
Okay. There would be a degree of intellectual dishonesty on my part if I said that democracy was this perfect system. I don't think it is. I think democracy relies on a degree of rationality from its voters. It is incumbent upon the voters to be rational actors, and they aren't always rational actors. I am fully aware of that. But generally, most times, democracy is a successful block against tyranny. Most democratic governments in the world are liberal governments. Most democratic countries are liberal countries. They have a respect for human rights, for individual rights. That's not to say they're perfect. I don't think there is such a thing. But it's a system that generally works. I dislike the idea of the Electoral College because it undermines a fundamental equality that all citizens should be enjoying. I believe that there is no reason one citizen should be worth more than another citizen, and the Electoral College undermines that quality. And if your argument is against the nature of democracy itself, that's the conversation we should be having. But if you're just arguing to protect the Electoral College, it's a non-starter. Like, you know my arguments.
Yes. So in response to that, the one thing I would like to point out is that under the U.S. Constitution currently, we are democratic in the sense that we are voting, but we're just not voting for the president. We're voting for the electors who then vote for president. So how is that any different from like U.S. Congress, in which certain states have less senators, but the population changes depending on the state?
Well, because you vote directly for your senators and you vote directly for your congressmen.
But we are voting directly for the electors.
Okay, but the electors are voting on our behalf to vote for. Like, most people don't know they're voting for electors when they vote, right?
Yes.
They hit a name on a ticket that they think goes to somebody who should be a president. It's inherently undemocratic. It's a group of people who step in on our behalf and decide for us.
But isn't that what Congress does, except in the case of instead of picking the president, they vote for laws?
Yes, and I'm fine with Congress doing that so long as I get to choose who gets to be the congressman. Just like I'm fine with the president doing that so long as I get to choose who gets to be the president.
But
the electors aren't deciding our laws for us. They're deciding our president for us, which is what I have the problem with.
Okay. So I'm looking at my notes real quick. So in Federalist Paper 68, this is, before we start getting into, I would like to challenge a little bit of your founding fathers. So in the Federalist Paper 68, it was all stated by Alexander Hamilton. It was also peculiarly desirable to afford as little opportunity as possible to tumult and disorder. This evil was not less to be dreaded in the election of a magistrate who was to have so important an agency in the administration of the government as the presidents of the United States. The choice of several to form an intermediate body of electors will be much less apt to convulse the community with any extraordinary or violent movements than the choice of one who was himself to be the final object of the public wishes.
Okay.
So in it, he's saying that we need to have like an intermediary to prevent the president of the United States to be corrupted with tumult and disorder or just evil in general, which he states. So would it not make sense then for us to forego democracy in the sense of a position as powerful as the president is to avoid?
No, I see it as the exact opposite.
But what reason do you like? I'm I'm a history major, a classical history major, and one thing we talk about commonly is Athens, which was a direct democracy. But in it, there are many times where they elected to have people that were complete tyrants, but they were elected by the majority of people. So,
Okay.
like, how do you remedy these tyrants coming about if we have a direct democracy when it comes to the president of the United States, which, as I think we both can agree, has become a much more powerful position than it was when the founding fathers had created it, with like the Presidential War Powers Act, which essentially negates the fact that Congress has to declare war.
I don't disagree with the idea that democracy can be a vehicle for tyranny. It absolutely can, but so can an electoral college. I don't see an electoral college as doing any better a job of protecting us. In fact, I see it as probably a greater threat to a tyrannical government than, I'm sorry, a greater vehicle for a tyrannical government than anything else, because there's no rules for the electors to decide. Athens did not fail because of the people's votes. This is a talking point I hear quite often. Athens failed because of the Peloponnesian War. Most democracies today don't function like
the Peloponnesian War. The reason they lost is because of Alcibiades, who was publicly elected to go and invade Sicily. Had the public not voted for him, they would have had an army which most likely would have stopped the Spartans.
Okay, and he could have been appointed and invaded Sicily, right? It wasn't democracy that ended them, it was the Peloponnesian War.
But the Peloponnesian War was voted on by the people.
Okay.
So the people fell for the tyranny itself. So wouldn't it be better to have, as the 12th Amendment, which amendment is it that says that, once again, the Federalist Paper 68, for made men capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to the deliberation and to a judicious. I'm not going to read all of it, but wouldn't it not make sense then for us to rely on people that know more about it than we do?
No, I don't think so. I think that might be the case for Congress. I think that's the entire point of Congress. I don't believe in voting by referendum, right? I still want checks and balances, but I want to decide who my representatives are.
But you do. You get to vote for the electors who then vote for the president. That is a true representative democracy. If you're voting for representatives to then...
No, the electors are appointing my representative for me. That's not a representative democracy.
You are choosing your representative, who is the elector. The electors are then voting for a final say. It's no different than Congress voting for a law on your behalf. They're voting for your opinion on your behalf.
Right, and I get a direct say on who my congressman gets to be, but the whole point is to have a direct say in who my president gets to be, which is what most people think they're doing when they vote for the president.
Well, it doesn't matter what they think. It's what's matter is the facts, and the fact is that we are not voting for the president. We're voting for.
Yeah, I know that. I'm not understanding why this is a better system.
I think it is a better system because it is denying the fact that you can have people, if you have a single group of people, the American people, vote for an individual, you are more likely to have tyranny form as opposed to having a group of representatives who know more about the facts than we do.
Okay.
Like, why do you think that Congress is a good idea? Because we clearly cannot make rational decisions, correct? Like, right. Vast majority. So why do you think that we are able then to make the rash decision of who's able to be the leader of the free world?
Because we make this decision with everybody else.
But we give it to someone that knows more power than we do. If we truly were...
Right, and that's the part. You were just stating things that are factual. Yes, I know we give it to more people who have more power than we do. I don't see why we should. Why should we elect our congressmen directly and our senators directly, but not our president?
Well, according to the Constitution, we shouldn't elect our senators directly.
Okay, well, no, according to the Constitution, we should. It was amended to change that.
It was amended, yes, but the concept of it is if we want to take it as a document which the founders wrote and listen to it or read it directly, we shouldn't have that right. So the right of the people to vote should be limited to Congress and then for the representatives to vote for the president.
Okay, so do you just not want an amendment process in the Constitution?
No, I think we should have an amendment process of the Constitution. I'm just saying that if we read it directly, that this is how it should be. And then here's, I think, the real thing, is I do agree with one of the points that you raise on your quick stats. I do think that it says that it should be divided into districts. I am in favor of electoral college reform to where it's not a winner-take-all system.
Okay, so you want to restrict the democratic, the demos even more. Is that correct?
Why would that restrict the demos even more?
Because districts are divided, because it's not the whole of the people.
But then here's the thing: is so right now our system is that if you live in California, your vote can't be heard at all.
Right.
If you're Republican, and if you're in Texas and you're Democratic, because that's what you are, correct?
Yeah.
Your vote for president cannot be heard at all. If we do it by district and divide it like that, then it is more democratic in the sense that you actually do have your voice heard.
Well,
But
do you know what would be the most democratic?
But once again, that then leads into the fault of the people to then vote for something that they themselves cannot understand and they do not want.
And that could lead to that with the Electoral College too.
But it's less likely to.
Talking about what the people want, the people voted for Hillary Clinton by 3 million more votes than they voted for Donald Trump. The people made their choice very clear.
But that also is very divided on locations. Like the middle of the country.
Why should the locations matter?
Because there's different. Do you not agree that there are different issues that need to be addressed in certain areas of the country?
I do. That's the point of congressmen and senators.
But if the president now is gaining power, shouldn't the smaller states still have that say in who's?
They do have a say. They have senators. They have exactly as much senators as I have from a big state.
But the president is gaining more power, correct?
How is he gaining more power? He only gets the power that Congress gives him.
Yes, and Congress has consistently given the president more power.
Okay, so elect better congressmen.
I agree with that. But the thing is we keep giving the president these powers. Should the small states not have the right to have any sort of say in like the government? Because if we keep going down this trend, like we will like lead to a full like.
I don't think states, when it comes to choosing the president, I don't think states should have any say in who gets to be the president. They have a say in who gets to be their senator.
Yes, and I agree with that. But the thing is like with the rise of executive orders, the president is being a Congress, essentially. They are able to pass laws. Look at Barack Obama with the DACA. Look at Donald Trump threatening to overthrow the Constitution. The thing is that the president has become much more powerful, and his executive orders have been allowed to be much more numerous and more powerful.
Then it's up to the people's house, the House of Representatives, to start articles of impeachment on him, and the Senate to try him. This is checks and balances in action.
But we don't do that.
Okay, well, what do you want me to do about it? Like, do you think the Electoral we have the Electoral College that gave us Trump, and you're still getting that the exact system you're describing?
But we had it with Obama, and Obama won the popular vote.
Right, and sometimes people.
So what difference does it make?
Well, that's a good question. The difference is I get to choose. When it comes to the popular vote, we get as good a government as we deserve. When it comes to the Electoral College vote, we get a dictator who writes the executive law on his own. That's what you said. But
we get that. No, I said we get people that vote that write executive law on their own, regardless of how we elect them. So why can the Electoral College not prevent someone from continuing to do that?
But it hasn't.
But you're telling me that electing them by the people would be less effective in doing that? You can't tell me that Hillary Clinton would have written less executive orders than Donald Trump would have.
I don't know what Hillary Clinton would have done, but I highly doubt she would have written an executive order to take away birthright citizenship. But this isn't a debate. He hasn't. Okay, what he's talking about. But this isn't a debate about Hillary Clinton or
I get
Trump. This is a preference and style of government. One moves power up and the other moves power down. I prefer having power with the people.
And I agree with the power to the people, but I also believe that people can be corrupted.
Yeah, they can.
So then why should we be the ones to make these final decisions? Like, once again, we vote for Congress.
This is a silly hypothetical. Anybody can be corrupted. That's not a reason to take away my power.
But it's harder to corrupt someone who we do not know who they are.
I think it's harder to corrupt 320 million people.
It's harder to corrupt. But the will of 300 million people can be very ill-informed, correct?
Yeah.
So you agree with this. So then why would the will of the 300 million people then should it be always trusted to carry on with electing the president of the United States?
Well, it generally is. Most times when the president is elected, the Electoral College and the popular vote are both the same, right? The person who wins gets the majority of both.
Yes.
So why has it not been a vehicle for tyranny all these other times?
Because we do have the check of the Electoral College. Like, why hasn't it been? Because we have a failsafe in case it does. I'm not saying that it will, but once again, the Electoral College has also not shown.
What do you mean by failsafe? What are you talking about?
Okay, hypothetically, say we the people elect someone terrible to be president of the United States.
We have, but okay.
I'm not debating on whether or not we have or haven't. However, hypothetically, say it's someone significantly worse and is pandering to a specific group of people and is openly saying that they are going to take away the rights of the others.
Okay.
He wins the election, the popular election, which is possible, once again, shown by history, in which people are willing to fall for things that they themselves cannot understand. So,
can I interject and address this point?
Yes.
I want to pick this apart. Historically, do you think most democracies have fallen to tyranny? Or do you think most democracies are stable, liberal?
Okay. The oldest living democracy is the United
Belgium.
States.
I can name, yeah. And I can, or do you think we've descended into tyranny?
Not yet, but we have only been around for 250 years?
Right. So, well, let's go with most countries now. Most countries that have a democratic form of government, they are stable, correct? They are liberal.
But we have more, okay, but now here's my thing against that is they don't elect the president or prime minister themselves. They have their congressmen vote for them.
Right, because they have a different system of government. They have a parliamentary system.
So once again, all republics today essentially have the system of the Electoral College. It's just not called the Electoral College. And them, it's called the Parliament.
Well, I'm curious. Would you rather have a parliamentary system?
Oh, no. I think it's a terrible system.
You're defending the Electoral College, dude. That's what it is.
No,
you just said that.
No, I said it is similar.
Okay.
It is similar to it, but it is.
Tell me what the difference is between electors determining my president and parliamentarians determining my prime minister. What's the difference there?
Because I think what I would want. Okay, the difference between that is I think that I would much rather have someone who is not interested in who the leader is vote for who the leader is. Correct?
I'm sorry, someone who is not interested. I'm sorry, repeat that?
I would rather have someone who is not, like Congress, is going to be much more careful with who they pick as the leader of Congress.
Okay.
So, I would much rather have an outsider determine who the president of the United States is.
Why?
Because they're not Congress who has to deal with the president.
Okay.
What if, okay, hypothetically, the people want a Democratic president, but they want a Republican Congress.
Okay.
Well, if Congress was all Republican, the Democratic president is impossible to have.
No, we've had that. We had that with Barack Obama.
Because of the Electoral College. If Congress themselves voted for it, it's impossible for that to occur.
I'm sorry, do you mean Parliament?
Like in a parliamentary system, if we had our Congress vote for the president, then we would be always beholden to the will of the majority of the Congress. And once again, I think the issue is there are sections of the country which have different ideals and different needs that need to be met. Like, you can't tell me, I'm from Indiana. Indiana has a different subset of needs than Texas does, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think Texas have different sets of needs than New York does. And I think the thing is by having the Electoral College, you allow everyone to have those. The president has to fulfill more needs than just the needs of few.
Well, he's the president of the needs of few. What do you mean by that?
Okay, if we do an election that is based off a majority rule, you could do you could only focus on needs that need to be met by coastal states, for instance. And you could win the election based off of coastal states alone.
Okay, can you name these coastal states for me?
Washington, Oregon, California, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Rhode Island, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Maine.
Okay, and these are all very fundamentally different states, right?
Yes. But they all have similar needs because they're going to be all on the coast.
What is the need? What need does California have that Maine has?
Open trade on waters.
Okay, so
once again,
don't we want a president to concentrate on that?
Yes, they should be able to concentrate on it, but by having the Electoral College, they have to focus on wider appeals than just the needs of a single section of the country.
Well, what appeals do you want them to focus on?
The appeals of the whole nation.
The whole nation voted.
Yes, and if you do it by people, it doesn't take into account where those needs need to come from.
Right, because that's where most of the people... I'm sorry, let me calm down. This is most of the people live generally in these coastal states, in these states you live. There is no reason that a person from Indiana should count as more of an American than I do, whether my needs are the greater needs or yours are the greater needs. We should have a fundamental equality, and the Electoral College undermines that. Do you disagree with this?
Yes, because we are not designed to be a true democracy.
No. I'm just asking. Do you agree with the statement that the Electoral College undermines our equality as a citizen?
Yes, but I think it's granted by the Constitution. We do not have the right of equality per state. If we did, we wouldn't have the Senate.
Yeah, okay, I agree. This is what the Constitution says. I understand that. We're arguing for a better system. Put yourself in the veil of ignorance. Let's make a better country.
I am opening my head to a better system, but I don't think that popular votes are the way to go, because you have historically the United States are the oldest current republic in the world, correct?
No, I wouldn't say that. We're a very different kind of republic.
Okay, which country had a republic before the United States did?
I don't know.
We are the first one.
We're counting like the Spartan Republic or Athens Republic? How far back you want to go to Greece?
Well, the only one that currently stands is the United States, correct? The oldest currently standing republic is the United States. When our founding fathers looked at historical sources for our model of government, they looked at Rome, they looked at Athens, they looked at the United Provinces, they looked at several sources, and all of them pointed to the same thing. Democracy itself is prone to failure.
Can you quote me which founding father said that and where?
I cannot actually.
Don't fucking make shit up, because I know what this is. I'm sorry. You're doing the same thing, Dead Horse.
But hang on.
I know. I'm sorry.
Calm yourself.
If our founding fathers didn't look at historical sources, then why did they structure our government the way they did?
As a compromise. You studied history. As a compromise system. Because they wanted a system of government where the president was independent of the legislature, that was simultaneously able to be appointed without disenfranchising slave states. Yes. Okay, that's why. It has nothing to do with not trusting democracy, because historically democracies were failures. If you're going to make that statement, provide me the founding father that said that. Provide me when they said that, what they were saying. Like, don't just say that. That's the same shit Dead Horse does.
1 second.
Like, you want to say that. So this is me being generous. I'm trying to be generous. It is dishonest of me to say that the founding fathers had an absolute trust of democracy. It's also dishonest of you to say they had an absolute distrust of democracy, because they were a conglomerate of so many different people. And the reason I rely on the records of the Federal Convention instead of Federalist 68 is Federalist 68 was written by Alexander Hamilton, one founder. And the records of the Federal Convention were founding fathers actively debating what kind of executive we should have and how we should appoint him. And several of them entertain the idea that he should be an executive appointed by the people. Their reasoning was laid out there. It's how we got to our system.
Okay, so Washington Post. I cannot find the exact statement where they're pulling this from, but Washington Post has an article titled "What the Founding Fathers Got Wrong About Democracy," and in it says ancient Athens democracy might offer options. The framers of our Constitution rejected the Athenian model as too democratic, and that is in quotes, for the measured republic that they were trying to rebuild. They feared the emotion, corruption, and factionalism that had plagued the Athenian democracy.
Okay, does it say which founding father said that?
No, I'm trying to find it as we speak.
Okay, well, I can't find anything like that. I find different quotes that teeter along that, but I don't see anything like that. See, this is why this is a dead end. You have to get. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get mad at you, dude. All right, I love you, buddy. This is what Dead Horse did, and before that was this is sort of along the lines of what Hey Dude did. You have to support what you're saying, because this is the kind of blanket statements that just erode the quality of this conversation. So this is also why I dislike invoking the founding fathers for much of anything, Never mind that they agreed or disagreed on various different things. How about we just admit they were wrong about some things?
They were wrong about some things.
Then why are we using them as a cudgel for our argument? Why can't we just support our arguments on their own merits?
Okay. I'm still looking for it.
Okay, so your argument against democracy is that people will vote in tyranny.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is shown by history, and that is the reason the founding fathers stated.
Where has this happened in contemporary history?
What?
Has it happened in contemporary history?
Yes.
Where?
Nazi Germany.
Not Adolf Hitler lost his election. He lost his election to Paul von Hindenburg.
And then he was voted into office.
He was appointed. Dude, I sent you my videos to watch on this for a reason.
Really? That's why the Nazi Party was voted into office, and then they were the ones to bestow upon Hitler chancellorship of Germany, and then voted to give away all powers.
You're not even correct. Paul von Hindenburg bestowed upon Hitler the chancellorship of Germany. The Nazi Party won the most seats.
Yes.
Okay? The Enabling Act is what concentrated power into the Nazi Party. It suspended like the German Constitution.
Yes.
Okay, democracy.
That is shown by the people voting for something that they could not understand.
No, but the people didn't vote for it. The people voted for Paul von Hindenburg. That's what you don't understand.
But they voted for the Nazi Party to take control of the Reichstag.
Okay, and?
So, once again, if we have...
Then are you going to argue that Congress should also be reformed so that there's no popular vote for Congress?
No, because guess what? We have a check and balance to where if the Congress is beholden to people like that, we have the presidential veto powers, which denies him that right, which denies them that right.
Checks and balances.
Yes, okay, we have checks and balances.
So just to be clear, your history of democracy being used as a vehicle for tyranny is Nazi Germany, where the people voted against
Rome, Athens.
Contemporary history. Okay, you understand contemporary, right?
There are no contemporary histories of true democracy besides the United States, and then the countries.
True democracy. There's different kinds of democracy. Tell me what the true democracy is.
Guys, so we're getting a little bit intense here, so I want you to go calm down and stop interrupting each other. All right?
Yeah, I'm gonna dial it down. I'm gonna go get a Coke real quick.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm gonna read some of the questions. Well, actually, a lot of them are for Lispy. So, actually, here's one from Gerald Perry. Why is democracy good?
It's not.
I'm sorry, Caleb. You're hitting all the pitfalls I was afraid you would hit.
No, because we have this thing called checks and balances. We have the president, which is not elected by the people. We have Congress, which is elected by the people. The check and the balance. If the people want something insane, the president, who is not beholden to the people, but is beholden to the electors, can veto the people's power, which is Congress.
I'm just curious, if the Electoral College, so Donald Trump wins the Electoral College by 10 electoral, I don't remember.
Yes, whatever it is.
If the Electoral College gave all their electoral votes to Hillary Clinton, you'd be okay with that?
Yes, I would, because guess what? Well, I would actually be okay with that, and the reason being is because Donald Trump was a demagogue.
What if they gave all their electoral votes to somebody who wasn't even on the ballot?
That's okay, because guess what? That prevents the people from allowing them to control both branches of government, which create our laws.
What if they give their electoral votes to somebody who's a dictator?
But why would they do that? If they have
maybe because they're just as irrational as the people are.
But they're not, because they're designed to be people that understand the system better than we are.
You're defending a system where people could very well conceivably decide to put in a dictator, right? You're defending a system where conceivably they could decide to put somebody in the office of the presidency who was never even on the ballot, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very anti-Republican system.
But the thing is when you don't know who the electors are, they are not chosen until the election of the state. We do not know who they are, so they cannot conspire together to elect a dictator. The people, on the other hand, know who each other are, can pick out what we want, and then can enable that through the presidential powers. The Electoral College, on the other hand, has a group that is unknown until the date of the election, so they cannot collaborate together.
Why don't you want people to collaborate? Why? Because democracy isn't the whole idea for people to collaborate?
Because once again, if you allow people to collaborate towards a bad thing, then that bad thing will become reality. Correct?
What thing will become reality?
if the people collaborate together to institute a dictatorship that is against their best interest, they know who each other are, so they are allowed to collaborate together. The Electoral College cannot collaborate together to put someone in charge that could be against the people's best interest. I know it's all hypothetical.
Yeah, it is all hypothetical, which is why I don't like entertaining these arguments.
But it's all hypothetical that the people wouldn't choose the worst person possible.
So we're in a position where neither of us can falsify the other person's propositions.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we reconcile this? You don't like the idea of democracy in general, so wouldn't you support? Why wouldn't you?
Neither do you, because if you support a democracy in general, then you would support people voting for every law we pass in the United States, because that would be more
a representative democracy.
And I want a representative that votes for me in my best interest, because I cannot understand the entire system of the United States.
Which is why I have no problem with representatives. I have no problem with a popular democracy, but I want to be able to choose my representatives. This was laid out at the beginning.
But the president of the United States is not representing.
He's representing the country.
Yes. The country is not composed of just people.
What else is the country composed of?
The institutions that control the people.
What are the institutions made of?
People and ideals. Like the U.S. Congress is not only just people, it is the ideal of a Republican system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree
there are multiple interests at stake when you talk about the United States. The House of Representatives is designed to represent the people. The Senate is designed to represent the needs of the state, the whole state, not just the people of a certain region. The president is supposed to represent everybody, including the states.
Okay.
The president, if you allow the people to vote for president and Congress, there are no checks between what the people want at all, because we have eliminated one check.
The checks are their congressmen and their senators.
But the people elect the congressmen and senators. It is very likely.
What about the Supreme Court as a check?
But who appoints them?
Okay, well, this is really reductionist. At the end of the day, it's the people appointing everybody.
Yes, but if you minimize the effect of people by making representatives and intermediaries, then the effect of the people is diminished between the actual result.
Okay, and you want to diminish the effect of the people because you believe that the people will vote in for tyranny?
I believe that the people will not vote for their best interest at heart, or at mine.
Why does somebody get to decide what the people's best interests are instead of the people themselves?
Because we do not. But once again, why do we have a Congress if the people know their best interest?
Well, Congress is there to represent their best interests. And the benefit of Congress is if
the people can pick their best interest, then we don't need a Congress at all. We just vote for what we want. We can have
Congress exists to reconcile a difference in what we see as our best interests, right?
Yes, and that's what the Electoral College is designed to do.
You don't have the slightest idea what I'm saying if you don't let me finish. The benefit of Congress is that if a congressman is not representing the people's best interests, the people can vote them out. They can't with the president because they have a situation of electors who votes on their behalf. Conceivably, Donald Trump runs for re-election in 2020. I'm sorry, 2022. Wait, fuck me.
2020.
My brain's fried. 2020, and the people decide overwhelmingly. In fact, I sent you my script on this. Right, some 78% of the people decide Donald Trump's not representing their best interest, and they vote for the other guy. The Electoral College could decide they're wrong and just reappoint Donald Trump.
Yes,
and this is a system you're still defending.
Because when has that occurred?
Why should it even be allowed?
But what if the people voted for what? Okay, so I know you're against Donald Trump, and I agree with you. I don't think he's the best president. But here's the thing: is what if the people voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, but yet there is someone much more stable at mind, and then they decided, well, we're not going to give the president to him because he could be tyrannical, so they give it to someone else. Would you not be in favor of there being a final check to prevent the people from having a dictatorship?
No. I think if the people vote in a dictatorship, the people get a dictatorship. I think a country gets what it deserves. With a democracy, the country can only be as good as the people are. And I also think that's the benefit of democracy, is it compels us to strive to be better because we have to negotiate with each other to get anything done. It compels us to actually take into account form coalitions and to merge our ideas and to win on the best ideas. We can't just stay cozy and hope to excite our base the most.
But the Electoral College prevents you from just exciting a certain base, correct?
No, it's the exact opposite. All you got to do is excite your base in the right area. Excite your base in Ohio. Excite your base in Florida. Excite your base in Iowa. Excite your base.
Don't even give me the swing states. Swing states change. Wisconsin's now a swing state. Was it in the 2016?
Okay, it doesn't matter. It's swing states. Pick your swing state. Any swing state. Let them change to any swing state. The point is, you only win those swing states by capitalizing on exciting your base in those swing states, right?
Okay, but the popular vote, you could do the exact same thing, except instead of states, you do population areas. Now, it's not just big cities, not New York and California, but you only have to excite the population areas because the middle of the country is so sparsely populated, their voice won't matter.
No, their voice will matter for as much as my voice matters. One vote.
But why is one person, one vote a lot? Like, that is not constitutionally guaranteed for the president of the United States.
Yeah, I know it's not constitutionally guaranteed. I think it should be.
But once again, why should the people be allowed to vote in a tyranny? If we're not good enough to...
I already explained it. Because we should have a government that's as good as its people.
So then why should our government not... Why should it not just be a direct democracy? Because then it's truly the people that vote for stuff.
I think in some cases it could be, but I like the idea of checks and balances to ameliorate the exact problems you're describing, which is runaway tyranny, runaway people's mob, right? Like, I'm sorry, I'm butchering this, but you know what I'm saying, right?
But if everyone is voted for by the people, you do have the ability for runaway tyranny. All the people could vote for a certain congressman. All the people could vote for the same president. And then guess what? There are no checks and balances.
Well, there are. The congressmen themselves are the checks and balances. They have to negotiate with each other.
But you just said they were beholden to the people, correct?
People in their district.
Yes, and if their people
doesn't vote on our Congress.
If the people vote in for a congressman that wants tyranny, then they vote for the president that wants tyranny. They all win. So guess what? Now we have an entire governmental system that is now controlled by tyranny. There are no final checks between the Electoral College that says, you know, wait, maybe we should not vote in tyranny because that's not the best interest. At least put the president, who's not a tyrannical leader, and he can veto the tyrannical Congress.
Okay. So you're just to boil your argument down to the most extreme absurd. You're against the idea of democracy because it could be used as a vehicle for tyranny.
Yes, and it has been shown historically to do so.
And you also understand that an electoral college can also be a vehicle for tyranny.
But it's less likely to because we do not know the electors beforehand.
Okay. I think saying democracy has historically been used to when you only so far named two democracies.
There aren't many democracies. That's the thing.
Are we pretending Belgium's not a democracy? France isn't a democracy?
Today they are, but they're based off of our system of government.
How come none of these other democracies are vehicles for tyranny right now?
Because the years have not gone by sufficiently for them to become such things.
20 years? Do you think there'll be a tyranny in 20 years?
I don't know.
40 years?
Athens took 400 years.
That's a success story, dude. Do you think most countries last that long? In 400 years, there's a lot of period of tumult and revolutions and civil wars and conquering. And then Athens lasted 400 years. You're defeating your own argument.
And they voted for tyranny to end their country. Would they not have lasted longer if they didn't vote for that?
No, they might have lasted longer if they didn't vote for some. I would say they would have lasted longer if they'd won the Peloponnesian War.
But the Peloponnesian War was started because of their own votes.
So
they think their best interest. They thought their best interest was to create the Athenian Empire, but you're giving me the perfect example. The democratic Athens lasted for 400 years before they fucked up and they lost the Peloponnesian War because of democracy. Can you give me an example of any other kind of government? Well, I mean, I guess if it's not a democracy, I don't know what other kind of government you'd have other than like a feudalistic system or a monarchy that's lasted more than 400 years? Feudalistic and monarchies have lasted significantly longer than democracies have.
Would you rather live under a feudalistic system or a monarchy?
I would much rather live under a constitutional monarchy where there are some laws.
Okay. Tell me about this constitutional monarchy, I guess.
England, before they started electing the parliament, where there were laws in place to prevent tyranny. Even after they started electing the parliament, there were still laws in place to prevent the people.
Okay, so tell me about this monarchy. Well, England, before they had a parliament. So what are you picturing? Landowners voting?
Yes, but you could have done mass majority of people voting, and the outcome would have been the same. There is a leader that is unelected by the people, and the advisors.
So would you be okay with the idea of a president being elected for life then? Or I should say appointed for life.
Do I want that? No, but in the
What
long,
do you think a constitutional monarchy is?
I'm not.
Hey.
I'm simply saying that these would be better. These would last significantly longer because guess what? They are not beholden to the people, which significantly increases the chances of tyranny coming into place and stopping tyranny.
No, the opposite. I think if you're beholden to the people, it's harder to become a tyrant.
But then why is it when we have had direct democracy in the past, they lead to tyranny?
What direct democracy? I don't think we've ever had any. I don't think there's any country in the world that uses direct democracy in the sense that people vote on their own referendums.
Yes.
Every country.
Why do we not do that? Why do you not trust the people voting for their own stuff?
Because I like checks and balances too.
But wouldn't the people be the best check and balance because they can check and balance themselves?
No, people would be a check and balance.
But then wouldn't the Electoral College be a check and balance?
Yeah, it is a check and balance. I'm not disagreeing with that.
But it's one you don't like. Why?
Because it makes us unequal. I've already explained this numerous times.
Why does it matter that we're unequal as long as we have the checks and balances?
Because
Congress is unequal, but you don't think that is a check and balance that we should eliminate? Senate's unequal, but that's not a check and balance you should eliminate.
I do. You don't know my opinions on Congress, but generally, I want people to be equal, a fundamental equality of the people.
But once again, hang on. You said you don't know my opinions on the elect. I wanted to hear them. I think it's relevant for this debate.
I like the idea of a proportional representation system. I think historically parliamentary democracies have outlasted congressional democracies. I think you look at South American countries specifically as examples of systems of presidents where it's been failures, or African countries that have had presidents. There seems to be a trend where parliamentary democracies tend to be successful liberal countries. And congressional democracies tend to be unstable.
Okay,
and I prefer a proportional representation system.
I'm not going to get into this very much, but I'm curious. Do you not think that there could be a difference in culture that could have led to this?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Okay. Because the United States, the oldest congressional system, has not had this problem of true tyranny. And I agree that there is tyranny when it comes to this system.
Right, which is why I'm not afraid of the people voting in a popular democracy, because I think we have a culture that typically is democratic and liberal.
Yes, but you said yourself you're in favor of a parliamentary system, but then you're not even voting for your leader. You're voting for the representatives to then vote for your leader, which is, once again, essentially the same thing as the Electoral College, the only difference being that this would be giving Congress the power to do it.
Parliamentary system, firstly, proportional representation parliamentary systems differ because the makeup of the country has to match the makeup of the parliament. So it's actually fairer than the Electoral College, because with the Electoral College, these are unelected people who don't have to match what the people are like.
But is it even possible for the United States to have this proportional system because we are significantly larger than these countries?
Well, I don't know that the size is the matter. I think it's more the culture than anything else.
That is a good point. That's what I was actually going to go into. You look at these other countries that have these parliamentary systems, Germany, Norway. These are very homogeneous countries. They have the same culture, essentially the same ideals, because it's much smaller area. Some of our states are larger than their countries.
Yeah.
So then the thing is can this proportional system even possibly be in place, because the ideals of certain states are going to be entirely different.
Ideally, as your population scales up, that's why you would want the proportional representation system, right? Because it becomes harder to capture, like you said, certain blocks of society that get left behind, culturally speaking.
Yes.
But if they make up 12% of the population, where they're an absolute minority and they would have no say, at least with a proportional representation system, they occupy 12% of the parliament. But
here they represent more.
No, they don't represent anything. What are you talking about?
You see
a lot of Nazis in Congress?
No, because we have checks and balances.
Okay, well, okay. I don't mean like Nazis as in tyrants. I mean, do you see a lot of members of the Nazi Party in Congress?
No.
What about Green Party?
No.
Libertarian Party.
This is my thing. I am in favor of having, but okay, that system of government. We could get into how we could change voting, because I think our voting system needs to be changed. It should not be first past the post. It should not be a two-party system. The Green Party, the Libertarian Party, other parties should be allowed to have their say.
Don't you think the Electoral College reinforces that two-party system?
Do I think that? No, actually, I don't.
Why do we have a two-party system then? I mean, conceivably, if you wanted to vote Libertarian, you just vote Libertarian, right? And if the Libertarian candidate gets the most electors, they would win. But that isn't the case because they're safe states.
If we had it to where you won by district, like the founding fathers, I think, intended, and even you agree with this, the founding fathers intended us to do it based off of districts, correct?
Yeah, but I disagree with the founding fathers, so I don't see what the point of invoking them is.
But no, I'm just merely saying, if we elected them by districts, would there not be the chance of having more Libertarians, more Green Party, because they don't have to make a majority of in the winner-take-all system?
Sure.
You only have one or two parties that can take effect.
Sure, but are you defending the Electoral College as it is now, or do you want to defend the Electoral College as you imagine it to be?
I will do both.
Destroy this government. The United States falls tomorrow. Everything's destroyed, and they appoint you as the high leader to write us a new constitution. What does it look like?
I would probably say we're going to have an upper house, a lower house of the Congress, much like we do today.
Senate and Congress.
I would what?
Senate and House. I mean.
Yeah, Senate and House. I would have. Let's see. I probably, instead of having 2 senators, I'd probably have 1 per state. Because that makes much more sense to me to only have 1 person representing the state, not 2. I'd have more representatives in Congress to counter this, though, that are elected by the people. I continue where the lower house has less abilities than the upper house does, and then I would keep
less abilities. What? Clarify this.
Such as where the Supreme Court nominations, they go to the upper house, not the lower house.
It does. The Senate has to.
Yes, but in my new government, that's how it would continue.
Okay. So you're keeping that. Okay.
Yes. Then I personally, the way I would do the Electoral College, because I would keep something to check the presidential power and the congressional power from all being beholden to the people, I would have the president of the United States be elected by a district proportion system to where everyone's vote counts if they're in a sizable minority of states. Because I don't think it is fair that there are Democrats in California and there are Republicans in California, Democrats in Texas, that their vote does not matter. I think it needs to be proportional based off that. I like the way Maine has done in Nebraska.
Well, you say proportional. Why not use a proportional representation system to elect the president?
I believe
elect Congress.
Because I believe that the states, Congress, I think Congress should be proportional. I think that each congressman should be, well, you're guaranteed the 1 per state, and I think that should be kept the same. But I think that each congressman should represent proportionally the same amount of people as all other congressmen do.
They already do. Do you understand what I meant by proportional?
Can you clarify?
By proportional, I mean not proportional to your district, but proportional to the country's representation, right? So, like, if you have, let's say it's 50% Republicans, 48% Democrats, and 2% Greens, 2% of Congress will be Green Party, even though the country's so divided every other way, not by district. Like, if you have it by district, let's take a hypothetical example where we drained every single person out of the district but 1. So Congress represents each one of those persons in one of those districts, and everybody else is tucked in some corner of Florida, right? And they get their, well, I know it's not by population, but they get their own congressman. That's not a proportional representation system.
Yes.
Right? Because most of the people aren't being represented in the same way as the minority are. The minority are in all these other places.
But here's my thing, is then whose votes are we taking out? Because someone's vote has to then be, because the thing is we are such a large state, like our country is so large that if we do a proportional system, you are minimizing the ideas and needs of one section of the population and giving it to someone else. Because, okay, hypothetically, say the 2% of Green Party is from California. So what was your example? 50% Democrat, 48% Republican, 2% Green, whatever it was. So you're going to have the 50% Republican, but those Republicans might not represent what the people want because they might not be from the location that which voted for them.
I know, but why do we have to? This is what I'm saying. Why does it have to be segregated based on location?
Because the needs of the people change depending on location. You can't tell me that you think that people in the city and in the country and people on the coast and in the center of the United States have the same interests and needs. And not even political opinions, but like what they truly need.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't see that. I mean, that seems like a problem for the Senate, the upper house. The Senate would represent their needs, right?
But shouldn't the population also have their needs met?
I think they do in a proportional system. They have their needs met proportional to how much they make up the country.
But okay, but once again, if you have all like a certain party, the way we have it set up now is to where you have a representative from your region, correct?
Okay.
So your region has certain needs. Say you're from a city, you want things that will help your city grow. People in rural areas want things that will help their farm. If we do a proportional system, you do not have someone from your region that understands those needs. They understand their needs, but not the people's needs. The problem is,
senator could in that hypothetical. That's what I was saying.
The senator could, yes, but the senator does not vote for everything, and the lower house also votes for things. So here's the issue is, so like hypothetically, we have a large segment of people that live on the coast. We have a large segment of people that live in the cities. Under a proportional system, a good majority, like more than 50, so say it was 50% coastal, 50% uncoastal.
Okay.
It is possible under proportional system for more of the electors to be from a coastal area. And
how is that possible? Because it would either be 50%.
Because if it's not based on location, say the political parties, say we have a Republican political party and a liberal political party, we divide them north-south.
Yeah, I misunderstood you. I got you, man.
So the thing is if we have this system, you could have people that do not represent the middle of the country or people who do not represent the coast of the country. And then as a result of this, the people that are left out do not get their needs met. So, okay, do you live near the coast in Texas?
No.
Okay, so you would be more supportive towards state highways and other roads that would help alleviate areas that aren't coastal.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you'd be opposed of a full-scale upgrade. Let's build ports all across the coast to build more jobs for coastal people, correct?
Why would I oppose that? Sounds like a great idea.
Because it would take away money from from areas around you.
Okay.
So would you not be in support of having a system where location matters because your needs are not the same as my needs?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't think people vote by their locations. I don't think people think of themselves as a citizen of a city or a citizen of a county or a citizen that is urban or a citizen that is rural when they identify politically. I think they think of themselves as their political identity, a Democrat or a Republican.
But don't the parties then have like their own, like what they're referenced to? Because you can look like, okay, you can look at a county. If you look at like the county election maps, urban counties vote Democrat, Republican counties tend to be rural. So does it not make sense that there are some differences between the needs of each people, and then that's what leads them to vote for this political party? No, I'm not saying everyone. I'm just simply saying that that there are people that vote for the needs of where they're located, their experiences, much as anyone does.
Yeah.
They vote for what they know. And if we have it to where it's just proportional, you can be giving your representation to someone that does not know your needs, does not even understand your needs, because they could be from another area, not from your region. And that's why location matters.
The arguments against the Electoral College for me, if you don't realize it. Because an elector could conceivably fit all that criteria too. An elector doesn't know my needs. An elector doesn't know my location. He doesn't know what unique circumstances I face. Only I know that, and I vote based on that. So why shouldn't I trust myself with that?
Can I take this opportunity to interject? Because someone asked a question earlier that actually does have direct relevance to this issue. It's from Mammoth Wrangler. He wants me to ask you, Lispy, a critical coastal versus interior issue is gun rights because interior states have longer police response times because of more dispersed populations. And so I guess he wants to bring that as a point.
For people there.
I'm sorry?
No, it should be obvious they have longer police response times because there's more people there. Disparate populations, no.
Wait, rural times are shorter?
No. It says
no. Lispy. Rural police response times are shorter.
interior states have longer police response times because of more dispersed populations.
Dispersed or disparate?
Dispersed.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So what about it?
That would be a partisan issue, would it not?
No, I don't think police
Or a
response
locational.
No,
locational.
no. The original issue was gun rights because interior states have longer police response times.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
That would be a partisan issue that would directly reflect location.
Sure.
So this kind of ties in with what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing that certain regions have their own interests. I think I said that several times, actually.
It's just people have been telling me to bring it up a lot in the chat.
But so if you think that the location factor should be done away with, then how do you propose to renegade these problems, such as there are key issues that do not plague certain areas of the country?
So generally, I don't think are we arguing for my dream utopia or for the system as I would change it? Because those are different.
You can argue either way. I'm just asking.
So if I could,
this is okay. Here's my. This is my full question. So the Electoral College brings location into the presidential factor more than just people.
Okay.
Because there are issues that affect certain areas of the country that do not affect other areas of the country. Correct?
Correct.
If we do it just by people, those issues become mute because it's solely based off the whims of the majority of the people. By having location a factor, and I think this is the reason that a parliamentary system could not work in the United States, is you have people that do not understand regional needs, because in Europe, where parliamentary systems exist, the population is going to be much more uniform in what their needs are. Even in Canada, which has a parliamentary system, most of the population is on a single belt, and their needs are going to be very well met and very well similar to each other. The United States is unlike this because it's so large and the population is so spread out. Unlike Canada, where most 90% of the population is going to live along the U.S. border, and then climate is going to be much more similar. The United States has people spread all over the United States, and you have areas like Texas which have more population than places like Indiana, and it makes sense then that location should matter here because of the heteronormity of our culture than in other cultures where it's more genius.
So once again, I'm not against the idea that locations matter. I've never said anything against that. Yeah, they matter. I don't want to take that out. I'm fine with having congressmen and representatives represent your interests to your location.
But should our leader not then be also representative?
He has to represent all of our interests equally.
Yes, and by having the Electoral College, he has to represent more people than just a majority of people.
What? You can't. The majority of people. He represents the entire country.
If you do it based off a popular vote, the needs of less people can make the election matter. If you have the Electoral College, you have to fit the needs of multiple countries or multiple states. And let's look at this. So you're talking.
I've sent you my notes on this precisely to get rid of this argument. You understand that the Electoral College doesn't need the majority of states; it just needs a select few.
But here's the thing: is so I'm looking. No, This is the point. Is so you have the total electoral vote from swing states: Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania.
A second, somebody's knocking on my door.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, we have a few questions. Metal Slug wanted me to ask both of you, actually, but since you're the only one here, Caleb, can you ask each guest if they have read Locke?
I'm sorry.
I actually have. I love John Locke.
All right.
I find it very interesting that the founder, that Thomas Jefferson, changed the life, liberty, and property to pursuit of happiness. I find that to be a very key difference. I also find him very confusing when he talks about that no man can own himself because it's God's ordained right to own. It's not your work, it's God's work, your body is, but yet we're able to own slaves. I find that very hypocritical of him.
Oh, that's actually, that's like an entire different thing.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot. I think he's a good philosopher. I think there's a lot of problems with him as a philosopher, though.
Of course you do.
So
hang on before we continue. The UFO answer donated $5 in Streamlabs to say to Weebo Jones the Magnificent. This format is less a debate and more discussion. In debate, both sides have opening statements and then rebuttals. Then the moderator can bring in questions in round 3 and help bring clarity. Would you prefer that format? I thought that was what we were kind of doing, so I just kind of let you guys.
We should do like an Oxford style debate sometime.
Oh my god,
yeah.
We're not that well organized. No, I let them do their opening statements, and then they're kind of rebuttaling, and then the third round will be like the last half hour. I'll ask questions to clarify. Is that cool, guys?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So Lispy, I'm looking directly from your California and New York decide section of your notes, and I sent Weebo my notes. If you'd like to look at them.
Yeah, send them my way. Are they going to disagree with anything in my notes?
I don't think so. Here, if you, shit.
Why do you bring this up? What is the issue?
So the issue is so on it says like swing vote. It's talking about swing states. And this is, I think, is a big thing. So the swing states are Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, Iowa, Wisconsin, North Carolina. The issue is that those swing states are very different in geographic regions, correct?
Sure.
So to actually win these swing states, you have to appeal to a wide variety of people, as opposed to if we just do a popular vote, you only have to appeal to people in certain areas to win. So you don't have to appeal to the wide variety of the country.
Certain areas to win. No, if it's the popular vote, you have to appeal to the people individually, not certain areas. But you're bringing up the point. You're like actually making my argument for me if you don't realize it. If you have to appeal to certain areas in swing states to win, then you're not taking into account what the rest of the country wants. If you have a popular vote system, then you actually have to win on your ideas. Your ideas have to win on their own merits. Whereas in Iowa, you only have to win on the idea that you can help Iowa the most.
But the thing is if you are winning the election based off of the Electoral College, you have to appeal to a wide variety of people. That's why like smaller states get more votes, is it makes it harder for you to just focus in on population heavy areas. And I agree with you. I don't think that like California and New York would be the ones to decide. I think that you would still have like urban areas would be more focused on than small areas because there are more votes in these urban areas. So I think like this, they'd go to swing states
under this system, right? Even when they go to swing states, they're not going to counties, right? They're going to wherever they can get the most people.
Yeah, exactly. But if we do just a popular vote, instead of going to just Ohio, just Pennsylvania, just Florida, you're not just going to those swing states. You're going to be going to the big cities. You're going to and I just going to throw off 3 cities here. You're going to be going to LA. You're going to be going to Chicago. You're going to be going to New York. Now, it's not just those cities, but you're going to be hitting just large population areas. It's not going to matter about the little people. And if you do an electoral college system, like, okay, if you just, and this just came to my head. So think like, if you wanted to get the 50% of the US population, the issue is you could avoid states entirely. You don't have to even focus on the needs of like small states. Like you could skip all of the Dakotas.
Your own arguments again, if you don't realize it.
No, I do realize that this is the thing. I do realize that this is like against the Electoral College, but it's not.
Why defend that system if you can? I mean, if it's the same under a popular vote that it would be an Electoral College, why bring that up as an argument? Nobody's visiting Texas when it's election time. Nobody goes to yeah, they don't go to California either, or Alaska, or Hawaii, or they don't go to Wyoming. They don't go to Nebraska. Even the smallest states, Wyoming is the smallest state. Nobody visits that state under this system.
Yes.
So it's not protecting small states any more so than it's protecting big states. It's protecting swing states. Those are the people whose interests are represented.
But no, the thing is it represents all people because swing states change. And if you have a system to where it's just a popular vote, you don't even have to focus on half of the country at all. Like
if it's a system that represents all people, how come nobody visited me last election?
Because you're the thing.
It's a state, right? They don't have to.
Yes, they don't have to. But the thing is if you have a system to where they it's just popular vote, even the needs of those states don't matter. Like the president, like to win the state of Texas, you have to have a platform that supports the needs of Texas. If you just do a popular vote, You don't have to have needs of of rural states because there's less population there.
Is Texas a rural state?
Texas is partly rural, partly not. But think of
it's partly rural and partly not.
What?
Every state's partly rural and partly not.
But Texas is much more but there are large population centers in Texas. There are not as large population centers in any of the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas. Like, these states do not have any. The Midwest essentially does not have any large voting demographic. You could,
once again, you're boiling this down to location again when I had already addressed this. I said earlier that I'm sorry, excuse me. I said earlier that
location shouldn't matter, but it should matter in a country this large.
I'm saying that under the Electoral College, location matters for very specific people, and you have to win by catering to the needs of people in certain locations, whereas with a popular vote, you have to win on your ideas. Do you disagree with that?
Can you repeat your statement? I had to get up. It got very hot in my room.
Okay. Under the Electoral College system, location matters too much, that you have to win by catering to the needs of people in specific locations, but under a popular vote, you have to win on your ideas. You can't just win by catering to Texas. Firstly, Texas is a very diverse place with loads of different ideas. So this idea that you can come to Texas where it's majority Republican and just cater to Republicans to win is really a self-defeating strategy, because there's like a good 45% of the state is blue-leaning Democrats, right? Like there's so much more vote. Like most of the states, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Most of the states, and I sent a map to Weebo for this, are actually very diverse in their ideas. And
yes, I've seen this map. I saw the map. I saw the map.
So this doesn't seem like it's a winning strategy under a popular vote system to just go to population centers, to just cater to people there. It actually seems like it's a losing strategy, given that there's so much more all across the states, in the Midwest, right, in those flyover states.
But if you do a popular vote, you're only going to have to do policies that affect those regions. Whereas if you give small states a larger vote, and I'm going to focus mainly in on the central of the United States, and I'm going to once again use this like coastal versus interior, you could win the United States election solely based off of coastal populations, correct?
Right, but can I pick apart something you just said?
Yes, go ahead.
You said that they would have to cater, I think was the word you used, to these specific population centers. Was that correct?
Yes, I believe
under
so.
A popular vote system. Okay, you're still not addressing the fact that the Electoral College system makes them cater to the needs of only these certain swing states, right? There's something called the Iowa Corn Plunge, which is basically designed to win you votes in Iowa, right? Like corn is a major crop in Iowa that basically every candidate pledges to protect. They do it specifically for something called ethanol, right? Ethanol is Iowa's bread and butter. But it's not really needed anywhere else. And the only reason candidates ever commit to the idea of ethanol as a product is because they need Iowa's votes. So, I mean, the Electoral College is reinforcing your problem.
But it minimizes the issue of once again, back to the interior versus exterior of the country. You could win the election solely based off of the exterior of the country, correct?
Yeah.
So you could conceivably run a candidate that could only deal with issues relating to the interior or exterior of the country, and they could win solely because their ideas affect more people, and the middle people don't matter. So it still creates a system of location. It's just the locations have changed from states to certain geographic areas with people with same interests, to where coastal people are going to be affected, and the only difference is whether or not the system itself is going to be representative of the people at large, of just numbers, or people by location. And I think it's people by location are much more important than people by large, because the people by large don't represent every single person. They don't represent every single idea. But if you have it based off of location, you're going to get people that have similar interests and similar needs that are going to have to be met before you can win the entire election. Whereas if you just do it based off a popular election, you just have to have more people to vote for you, not more locations to. Locations equal different experiences.
I think ideas equal different experiences too. When you said people at large don't represent every idea, I don't disagree with that, but they represent the majority idea, and I don't see any reason why we should hostage the majority idea that most people want for the minority idea, other than this weird hypothetical where you believe tyranny is going to happen. Is this really the only reason you're opposing democracy, is that it's a vehicle for tyranny? Is that your only argument against it?
No, I think that that's one argument, but I also think the idea of location mattering much more important than you're giving it credit for. This is like the third time I've said this. I think location does matter, and I think it should matter. I'm just not convinced that it should matter over the people, and I'm also not convinced that the Electoral College does anything to make every location matter equally. I think it makes only some locations matter a lot, and everybody else just impotent, right? Like, nobody cares about Georgia in the election. Yes, but here's a thing, or here's something I just pulled up. So 62.7% of the U.S. population lives in cities.
Okay.
But that comprises only 3.5% of the land area of the United States. So that means that 37.3% of the population lives in 96.5% of the land area. Should those people that lived in the smaller sections of the land area have their opinion matter? I think yes, because their experiences and their ideas and their needs are going to be insanely different from the people living in the cities.
You're absolutely right. Their opinions should matter, especially because their opinions are insanely different. But it shouldn't matter more than anybody else. I don't disagree with it. They should matter. They should matter for just as much as I matter.
But if you're going to just allow the city ideas to flourish, I think ideas are what we're really voting on. Like, we're not simply voting on a candidate. We're voting for the ideals of that candidate. So we
should use a majority system. You're right.
No, we should not use a majority system, because then the ideas of a single group of people, which are all going to be uniform, can completely override the ideas of an entirely other group of people. And now you're back at this point of, now it's the tyranny of the majority that you're saying, instead of
word.
What
about the tyranny of the minority? You're defending it. It's the tyranny of the minority. The minority gets their way over the majority.
Should they not?
No, they shouldn't. You're defending a tyranny of the minority.
So you're telling me that if there was, hypothetically, I don't want to pull out like a controversial example, but hypothetically, we have a large group of people that agree in one point, but then a small group of people that agree in the other point. So we should just instantly write off the small group of people because their ideas aren't the same?
No, they should vote on it.
But if more people agree with something because of something they don't know,
then win elections. Yeah. You know what? How about, you've changed my mind brilliantly. How about you win on your ideas? You're right. If your ideas can't muster a majority, your ideas shouldn't be supported.
But then now but then what about how about we deal with like the fact that only 30% of the people vote? Like, that's not a majority of people voting.
Well, so I don't know what to say. Too bad. The elections are won by people who show up. You want to win on your ideas? Get people to show up.
But what if those ideas are terrible?
What if they're terrible under this system? Like, democracy is not a panacea against terrible ideas, no more so than it's a vehicle for terrible ideas.
But we are not a democracy because we have a representative that...
Caleb, I can't entertain silly hypotheticals, right? It could be
hypothetically.
Idea.
Hypothetically. Here is my hypothetical for you. So we have it like hypothetically.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to break up the monotony of dick measuring, and we're going to read some super chats. Mammoth Wrangler donated 5 to say, why is liberal ignoring the fact that in smaller states they are willing to kill rather than live to service people who don't agree with them? I'm not entirely sure what.
Ooh, I get that. People living in rural states are much more likely to join the military than people that aren't.
Oh, okay.
Actually, we did this in one of my classes where the teacher did a poll who here has actually thought about joining the military. I was one of 2 kids that raised their hand, and he's like, how many of you lived in the country? And then only 3 of us raised our hands, and then of the city, 0 people raised their hands for thinking about joining the military because the ideas are different.
Okay. That's actually, I didn't know that was a thing.
Here,
and then
I'll pull up the statistics on U.S. military.
cool. And then Patrick Mao donated $5.49 to say, question, population centers are more diverse in class ethnicity. How do you cater to different groups at the same time?
That's a question for you, dude.
Can you repeat that? I was looking at this.
Sorry. Question, population centers are more diverse in class ethnicity. How do you cater to different groups at the same time?
I'm gonna sound like an asshole, but can you please repeat this again? I'm still reading this other article. Okay, I have it minimized. Go.
Are you paying attention?
Yes, I am.
All right. Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. Question, population centers are more diverse in class ethnicity. /ethnicity. How do you cater to different groups at the same time?
But here's my count. So how do you cater to groups? But the thing is their ideas and their needs are going to be more similar than people that live out in the country, which can also be diverse. Yes, urban centers have more people and are going to be more diverse, but their ideas and their needs of what a government should and shouldn't do are going to be more similar based off of their own experiences, which are going to be more similar despite the fact that they're diverse. Diversity does not only mean race, sex, gender, religion. It involves ideas as well. And if your ideas and your experiences are all very similar, such as living in the city, you do not have the idea of like what it means to not live in the city.
Gotcha. So essentially, people who live in the city also have similar ideas socioeconomically, in addition to their cultural shenanigans.
Yes.
Than people who live in rural areas. Gotcha. All right. Do you guys want me to ask another question, or do you guys want to jump back into what it is you were talking about earlier?
I don't know what else we're going to be able to. Caleb, do you think we're touching? We're not getting anywhere, are we?
I don't think so. I think the issue is we both we have a fundamental disagreement on whether or not region matters, and I don't think we can get anywhere unless we're accepting that one of us.
That's fine, but you're strawmanning me. I don't.
I really don't mean to strawman you. Like I am just saying that I think we have a fundamental difference on whether or not location should be more important than the population will.
Sure.
Oh, so anyway, when I was doing my research, this is what I just found. So 80% of the U.S. military come from areas that have a rural concentration of less than 0.5, meaning that they come from areas where more than half the population is urbanized. The overall population is slightly more urbanized with 84%. It's 35% of the military is composed of people from 25% of the U.S. population.
Cool.
Okay.
No, it has absolutely nothing to do with it, but.
So Patrick Muse said another thing in for 229 to say he disagrees and they do not have the same ideals, and that was with reference to the earlier super chat he sent in about populations and population centers being more diverse.
That's kind of the issue. Is cities are not. This is something Aiden Paladin said that made me roll my eyes. That cities are homogenous. They're not. Cities, by their very nature, the more people you get, the less homogenous you get by definition, right? You can't.
You can't tell me that the issues of a city aren't going to be the issues of a city. There are going to be issues that they all want met, regardless of their experiences. Yes, their experiences are different because in the United States, and I think this is a terrible thing, we do still have segregation. We have black communities, Little Italy. We have segregated communities. So yes, there are going to be differences of experiences, but they would all agree that we should have roads in cities. We should fund public education in cities, whereas rural people have different. What?
First, I'm not so sure that's true. Everybody agrees with roads. I mean, that's an easy one, but which public education is funded.
Not everybody agrees.
So here's the thing. So industry. If we're going to give bailouts to industry, more people in cities are going to agree because industry is going to be a much more heavily impacted job in rural areas or in urban areas, whereas farming is going to be much more important in rural areas. So if you allow a majority vote, you only need the cities to vote. So you could say, oh, I want to boost industry, but not boost farming. And farming is going to affect the other 30% of the population.
It's hard to me. Presidents don't dictate the direction of policy. Congress does, right? That's an issue to take up with your congressman. The president doesn't write the laws.
But the president vetoes laws, and the president can write laws.
Pretty sure the president can't write laws. Executive action?
That's what executive orders are them writing a law.
No, that's a direction for policy. That's not law, right? Laws have to be passed by Congress. Executive action is how are we going to implement something that is law? How are we going to execute law?
But they write it over things that aren't currently law.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Such as like the DACA, which is like, and I'm gonna try and use examples from both sides because I am a conservative, but I don't want to
take that as an example. I have no problem addressing that.
DACA, and then you have Donald Trump hypothetically saying that he might overturn birthright citizenship. That isn't a law that is currently been implemented. That is just them trying to change policy.
Well, so DACA's not a change. Yeah, DACA's not a change of law because like deferred adjudication is part of the law already, right? There is prosecutorial discretion or judicial discretion in law already, right? That's all DACA is we're going to use our discretion to not prosecute you for being illegal.
But the law was that it's illegal, that you get prosecuted if you're illegal. That, like, unless that law changes by Congress, that is still a law.
No, the law is you can't enter the country, but it's prosecutorial discretion on whether or not you get prosecuted for it.
Can you send me the link to this actual law? Or
immigration law, it's a misdemeanor crime to enter the country. But just like, well, let me use an example. It's a misdemeanor crime to run a stop sign. If you decide to contest a ticket that you get and the prosecutors decide not to prosecute and they dismiss the charges, are they writing law, or are they using their discretion to ignore something that's really inconsequential?
They would be just ignoring ignoring the law, and that would just be telling you how to describe it. Now, I am just trying to find where it does say that. I'm trying to find the law that states that it's just a misdemeanor to enter the United States.
Hang on, I'll find it for you.
Okay, so while he's doing that, I'm going to read the other two super chats that we got. From Glow in the Dark CIA, Knickers. That is Knickers, just in case anyone was curious. The president is the only one elected by the Electoral College so that the minority can get their ideas out.
Yes, and that minority is based off of location.
Okay. And Mammoth Wrangler donated 5 in chat to say, people willing to serve in the military or who have served should have more rights than people who have done nothing to endanger their life for the nation. Interesting statement. And you guys are ready to go, we can go, but I also have several questions. And keep in mind, we have about 7 more minutes until we get to that hour-and-a-half mark. So, yeah, that's the thing. And then we're going to open it up to the questions that I recorded from everybody. Cool?
Okay.
All right, so proceed.
I can find it.
Caleb, check the Hangouts chat for the quote.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to paste the page I got that from.
Federation for American Immigration Reform.
Do you want me to read this out for everybody?
I'll read if it's necessary.
We're ready to carry on.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else we're going to cover.
No?
Yeah, I don't really think there's much. I think the only thing is that whether, like, I think we've already discussed everything we can. Right.
Gotcha. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to take them from the bottom to the top. So if you don't hear yours quite yet, that's why. The Ghost of Hans Gruber. What's to stop a proportional government, which would be dominated by urban reps, from taking away guns nationwide to fight crime in their districts? He said that might be worth asking. So if you guys want to address that. I'm sorry?
The Constitution? That's the one that jumps out at me. I don't know about you.
Caleb?
The one thing I would like to say is I agree the Constitution does prevent that. However, the Constitution can be interpreted, and there have been people that I think would like it to be interpreted as the militia being a actual organized force that's controlled by the government. So if this government is beholden only, if the president is only beholden by the people, and Congress is only beholden by the people, which it is, and only in the Senate is, and you have the president then controlled by the majority of people, which is urbanites, then you could see a slow change of gun laws like that, such by the president nominating more liberal Supreme Court justices, which then can like interpret it differently with active interpretations.
Okay.
And by having the proportional system based off of location and not by people, which is essentially what a popular vote is, it's proportion based off of person, not location, you would have it be prevented that the urbanites would be able to control the entire United States.
All right. The UFO answer question: presidential power has increased since 1789 under FDR, was a jump, and then had greatly expanded since 2001. Does the Electoral College prevent Congress from ceding power to the executive branch?
Does the Electoral College prevent?
Does the Electoral College prevent Congress from ceding power to the executive branch?
Yeah, apparently not. They've been doing it anyway, and we've had an Electoral College.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way. The only way to prevent that would be to fundamentally force Congress to only follow the Constitution, only force the president to follow the Constitution, because the president, even if you're going to look at the system of, well, we have the popular vote and we have the Electoral College vote, the Congress has been giving the president more power, and that's just outside of the fact of who's actually president. Or that's actually outside of the fact who actually votes for president. It's more just whether or not Congress supports it or not.
Okay. Berserker5150 says, Weebo, please ask why Lispy thinks rural states' needs and opinions don't matter compared to large, more popular states, and how does that support his all votes are equal stance?
Please tell that guy to go swallow a bullet.
That's a little bit aggressive. Lispy, can you say that a little bit less aggressively?
I'm not answering this stupid question. I've said this multiple times. I'm getting tired of repeating myself.
Okay. TKUA, Weebo Jones, question: can liberal progressive policies stay moderate, or will those policies always move left with time?
I think all policies move left with time. I think people just like liberalizing. Or like, we're a more liberal country today than we were 100 years ago, and 100 years ago they were more liberal then than they were 1,000 years ago, right? That's such is the nature of humanity.
Yeah. I disagree that it's the humanity. I think it's just we have a pendulum, and you are constantly. I don't know if we've hit the pendulum of full progressivism, but eventually that pendulum will eventually swing back to archaic times, which I hope we don't see, because I do like the time period we live in.
It's a pendulum driven by progression, I think. Yeah, it's like those global warming charts where they like zigzag up and down.
Yeah.
And it seems like sometimes they're going down, but consistently they're going up. And that's liberalism. Consistently, it's a thing that becomes more popular over time.
Well, see, because this question conflates the idea that liberalism is also progressive, and I would venture to disagree that they are the same thing.
Not in the political theory sense, but I think he means just generally going left.
From a layman's sense, since I'm not a political science major, liberal to me, as I am defining it, or as I understand it, is more, more
free.
Unrestrained, I guess you could say. Whereas progressive means you're constantly going in that direction of improvement.
I disagree. I think, like, in our sense, we have like a progressivism and liberalism are kind of the same thing. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't want to discuss that. But I still think that there's like a pendulum. Like, if you look at it, like, we've constantly had this like swing of like more liberal governments, then swing to more tyrannical governments, and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Okay. So, next question is from Isaac Yepes for Lispy. The parliamentary system relies on plurality representation, so do you realize that Nazis would easily gain power using this since they only need a small amount of votes?
What? No, they have to build a coalition to gain any power, and it's a moderating force, right? If you have to work with people with different opinions than you can't just shove your own ideas in. That's actually one of the beauties of having a Congress that is mixed, which is why I'm not necessarily against the idea of big tent parties like Democrats and Republicans, because I think they do a good job of moderating the more extreme factions of their party. And I think the problem with Republicans lately is that moderation has been failing because the districts that elect Republicans have been getting significantly more gerrymandered. So the only way to become a Republican is to become further right. That's where the moderation fails.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Caleb, you understood my answer, right?
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but I get it.
Okay. All right.
I agree with it. I think it's on both sides though. Like,
the gerrymandering from 2010 was heavily skewed towards Republicans.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that the gerrymandering recently has, but I still think that there's kind of this sense of you have to become more extreme on both parties. That's why you're seeing more of a rise of people such as Alexander Cortesio, Bernie Sanders-esque people, and then you have more hardcore right-wing. I think that's just a multifaceted issue that we are becoming more extreme and polarized. Okay.
All right, next question from the ghost of Hans Gruber. Okay, Weebo Jones, please ask Lispy if he thinks that a proportional system resulting in smaller rural states losing representation would be an issue. Prop representation goes against the Virginia-New Jersey Compromise. I think that's what that is.
Yeah, so the Virginia-New Jersey Compromise was a compromise at our founding. There were two plans, basically. The Virginia plan was we elect a president by using Congress. Congress will appoint the president, and the New Jersey plan, I think, required electors. I'm not sure. You're the history major. You fact check me on this.
No, I'm a classical history major. I am not.
Okay. I'm familiar with the Virginia plan. I'm not so sure about the New Jersey plan, but I think it was.
I thought the New Jersey and the Virginia plan were based off of Congress, to where New Jersey was like, "Hey, we want a Senate." Congress. Virginia was like, "No, we want congressional because Virginia had a higher population."
The Virginia plan was a proposal for bicameral legislative branch. Could you repeat the question, Weebo?
Yeah. Do you think that a proportional system resulting in smaller rural states losing representation would be an issue? Prop representation goes against the Virginia-New Jersey Compromise.
Okay, so you don't need that second part. Do I think proportional representation causing smaller states to lose power would be an issue? No, because I don't think people identify with their states when they ideology go. I don't say I'm a Texan Democrat or you're an Iowan Republican or anything like that. You're just a Republican or a Democrat. And regardless of where you live, most people tend to think the same thing their party does on a national platform.
The one thing I have a point to make for the second point of this. I don't think it matters based off of the Virginia and New Jersey plan, because they both, it doesn't relate to the president. And I think that the presidency and the congressional system is entirely two separate entities and should be treated as such. So a law that governs one should not be the one to govern the other.
All right. Next question is from Chaos Eve. Hi, Chaos. How are you? Lispy, you say that the system you're suggesting will work because our culture is largely liberal. What happens if that culture shifts away from liberalism? Will that system still be viable?
No, probably not. But I think a lot of the successes of liberalism are dependent on things like checks and balances, which is why I'm not advocating we get rid of Congress or the Senate or anything like that. I just disagree that we need the Electoral College as a check against the people. I think the people's checks exist in the people's houses.
All right. This is Kyle asks, okay, if people in California outnumber those in Kansas, then Kansas just gets fucked?
Who's that for?
It didn't say. I would assume it's for you, Lispy.
No, Caleb, you can this one.
The one thing I want to say about this is that's kind of Ben Franklin's argument of democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting to have what to dinner. that's kind of my point that I was making, is that like if you have a system that's not based off a location, like yes, Kansas could get fucked. Do I think it would? No, but I think we need the check to prevent it from being possible for it to.
Okay.
Would a more apt analogy be that the Electoral College is 1,000 wolves and a million sheep deciding what to have for dinner?
Possibly.
Wolves debating amongst themselves, which the sheep don't get a say in it. Is the point?
Yes. It's a whole bunch of sheep voting for wolves to decide what to have for dinner. Kind of. But I think there should be more animals involved in this. I think there's like...
Oh my god. All right.
I don't want to discuss the analogy.
Oki Native asks, do they realize that the Electoral College is a popular vote, just 51 popular votes?
That's what I was trying to say by saying we vote for the electors and then the electors vote for us. Like, we do get our right to vote. It's just the right that we're given for the presidency is not the right we think we are given. We are not given the right to vote for president. We are given the right to vote for someone to vote for president. I
don't know why everybody keeps trying to like find a way to like finagle the popular vote. I'm sorry, the Electoral College system to be a popular vote system when it's so clearly not.
I agree with that. I don't understand. Like, why can't we just say that
it's not a popular vote system?
Yeah.
Full stop. It's not. Just because you popularly elect your representative, your elector, doesn't mean that the Electoral College is itself a popular vote system.
I know, and I'm very curious as what the people would think today if they knew that you didn't vote for your senator. Like, what would they have thought then? Like, would we still say, oh, well, we popularly vote for Senate, even though the Senate would have been, like, chosen by your state?
In the Founding Fathers?
Yeah, like, as the Founding Fathers wrote our Constitution, like, we don't have the right to vote for Senate, but like how would people even think about that today? Like, would they still say that it's popular vote?
Let's assume you could resurrect the body of James Madison, and James Madison comes today and he sits before Congress, and it's the year 2020, and 22% of the country end up electing the new president because that's the minimum required popular vote to win 270 electoral votes. And he sees a system of government where 320 million people are basically disenfranchised. 78% of them are disenfranchised because 22% of them who elect a president by the smallest states. Like, what is he going to think of this system? Like, James Madison was a liberal libcuck libtard, right? Like,
I think that honestly he'd be more ashamed at the fact that 78% of the population didn't vote because they all saw that as like the greatest right to be given.
Let's say 100% of the population votes, right? You only need 22% of the popular vote to win the Electoral College, right? You only need to win the smallest states where the electoral...
Those small states are all over the country to where you have to appeal to huge swaths of people.
The point of the hypothetical is you only have to win the smallest states plus half the smallest states plus one vote. And the minimum vote required for this in the popular vote system is 22%.
Yeah, I've seen the CGP. I love it. I actually really do like him as a video.
Yeah, I take it you disagreed with his video again.
That one I disagreed with. Most of them I really do like, and I find they're very educational.
Well, let's take that scenario. What do you think James Madison's going to say when that happens?
I think he'd be ashamed, but I think we'd all be ashamed if that occurred. But the thing is once again, that 22% is spread all over the country to where the ideas that you have to represent to get their votes would appeal to more people than just that 22%.
Right. I know he would be ashamed if it occurred and it would be spread out. I don't disagree with that. But I think the reason there should be shame is that this is happening because of an institution that is functioning in a way that was probably not intended. Like, do you think the Founding Fathers intended to have an electoral system where well, I guess I shouldn't say that. They did.
Yeah, because at the time, even then, it was possible. The thing is, I think they looked at it as there's no circumstance in which that would occur without other people voting for them. Because
they kind of counted on it. Well, some of them counted on it. This is my problem with using the Founding Fathers to justify the Electoral College. The Electoral College we have today is not the same Electoral College they established. It's actually very different.
Yes.
The one they established was based specifically on district plans where the electors had to deliberate amongst each other. And now we use pre-pledged general tickets by state in a first-past-the-post system. It's a fundamentally different system. So I don't even know why we talk about the Founding Fathers when we talk about the Electoral College.
Because they're the ones that instituted it.
Well, We're not defending what they're instigating, though. We're defending it as it stands now. It's something entirely different.
But even then, the same arguments could be made that only 22% of the population. Now, it could even have been less than. But the fact still remains is they wrote it knowing that this could be a thing, because even then it was possible for you to win for such a small percentage of the vote, because even then there were 13 states.
So out of curiosity, should people in territories be allowed to vote?
Ooh. That one I find very troubling.
Why? Your whole argument earlier was that people should vote based on their location, right?
Yes. But the thing is like, when they're not true U.S. citizens, I don't know. Like,
that's insane. What is a true U.S. citizen?
Lispy, calm down.
Someone that has U.S. citizen right. Like, if you're okay,
people in territories are U.S. citizens,
but they don't live in states that are affected by the same laws that we do.
Okay, are people in Washington D.C. U.S. citizens?
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Why? They don't live in states. They're not affected by the same laws we are.
I agree with that, but the issue is so people in Puerto Rico are not beholden to U.S. Constitution.
They are.
It's an unincorporated territory.
What do you mean unincorporated? It's a territory we own. It's governed by the U.S. Constitution. The state of Puerto Rico can't implement laws that are against the U.S. Constitution.
Puerto Rico, U.S. Constitution.
Okay, so wow.
Let's cut through this. Let's assume Puerto Rico, for the sake of argument, Puerto Rico is governed by the U.S. Constitution. Should they get a right to vote?
If they're beholden to the U.S. Constitution, I think yes. Then they probably should.
Okay, even though they're a territory and not a state.
Yes.
Okay.
Unincorporated U.S. territory.
Should I ask another question?
This is it. Under United States law, an unincorporated territory is an area controlled by the United States government, which is not incorporated into the United States. In unincorporated territories, the U.S. Constitution applies only partially. In the absence of an organic law, a territory is classified as unorganized. In unincorporated territory, fundamental rights apply as a matter of law, but other constitutional rights are not available.
Okay, so
there are only 13 unincorporated territories of the United States. Puerto Rico alone comprises the vast majority of both total area and the total population of these.
Right. Hang on. Some of those other constitutional rights that are not available are the rights explicitly given to states. That's the problem. You get the fundamental rights granted to you as an individual in the Constitution, but we don't grant rights to individuals. We grant them to states insofar as voting goes. Right? We allow states which they appoint or choose electors. Which is the fundamental problem I have with the electoral or the nature of voting in the United States. And if I could rewrite the Constitution, if I could add an amendment right now, I would write an amendment that says the right of the people to vote shall not be abridged, or I should say the right of the citizen to vote shall not be abridged, and just full stop right there. Because every single time they write the right of the people to vote shall not be abridged based on whatever, some asshole in some Republican state finds a way around it. Like you can't tell black people they can't vote. Okay, well, we're going to put fucking literacy tests. Okay, you can't put literacy tests on people to vote. Okay, well, we're going to have poll taxes now, right? Like, it's a consistent thing that happens. So I would just say everyone has the right to vote, full stop.
Okay, so everyone gets the right to vote, full stop. The Electoral College should still exist.
No, I'd still get rid of the Electoral College if I could. I'm just saying, this is a little bit separate from the Electoral College, but the right of voting should be a universal right for citizens in the United States.
I agree with that. But I think the issue becomes is when you have territories that are not entirely beholden to the U.S. Constitution. Now, I don't think it's right.
By beholden to the U.S. Constitution, it means territory. Like, from what you read, it means that the rights citizens enjoy from their states, that states enjoys, is not incorporated to that territory. It doesn't mean that the territory can just act outside of constitutional law. Right? These are still like their own sovereign locations as territories, but they still have to obey the Constitution insofar as you can't just ship people to Puerto Rico to torture them to get around the 8th Amendment, right? You understand that?
I agree with that.
That's what that means. But at the same time, there's no 10th Amendment right for Puerto Rico, right? All the rights were not reserved for the federal government are reserved for the states. Puerto Rico is not a state. And the same problem, I'm afraid, applies to the Electoral College. They don't get an electoral vote because they have to be a state. States have 2 senators. 2 senators and at least 1 representative. But because Puerto Rico is not a state, it doesn't get any of those. So it doesn't matter that they don't get the vote.
But hasn't Puerto Rico, I'm not positive on this, but hasn't Puerto Rico voted to not become a state?
No, they voted to become a state.
They have, and now I'm curious as to why they haven't. But that's
because
not.
It requires a Republican Congress to make them a state, and no offense, but they're brown. They're a brown state that's bigger than like 12 of the smallest states, and they would vote Democrat.
So I am currently sharing with both of you tweet that someone shared with me after tweet someone shared with me in the Discord chat that we have, the collaborative Discord thing that we have going on.
Yes.
Source, yeah, let's see.
Crap. The other source, hang on, I'm having trouble sharing it, but it's kind of relevant to the debate. And it was a question that someone brought up a while ago.
Why? Yeah, I did bring that up. It's so like I said it, like I didn't say it exactly. The electors, what are the qualifications? That they're independent.
That's like all that matters. They don't hold public office.
Yeah, they're like it's an unknown sort. Like they cannot be determined by a group beforehand. So like it's harder for them to collaborate in anything.
Gotcha. And then I sent you a second one from the same person in the same location. Just to clarify, the first link has to do with the Electoral College, and it's about the electors themselves and what are the qualifications, who selects them, just for the chat's benefit. And then the other one is a link to an article.
That's the county map. The
county map of all of the presidential election results from 2016.
And this is my why I argue that we have to have a location, because as you can see on this map, like a majority of counties and locations went for Donald Trump. I don't think that in my mind, I don't think that there should be a tyranny of anyone. That's why we have to have a balance between location and people, because
what's your idea that you don't get a tyranny from anyone? Either it's a tyranny of the majority or it's a tyranny of the minority. Like if you're going to throw around that buzzword, it's a tyranny of something. It's going to be a tyranny of something no matter what.
But the thing is that you're trying to get a balancing act with this.
I'm not. I just want people to be equal. One vote, one person. Win on your ideas.
But you're looking at the same map I am, and you can see the blue. The blue is significantly outnumbered by the red, but yet more people voted for her than Donald Trump, and those areas are going to be much more universal in their some of their needs than everyone else.
Do you know what this map shows me?
What?
It shows me that Republicans retain the majority of Congress.
Yeah. Yes.
So I don't see any reason why we have to incorporate them as having a greater voice in the presidency as well.
Because the presidency is a voice of the whole people.
The whole people voted for Hillary. The whole people voted blue.
But you have to have a check from the whole group of people.
We do. It's that entire sea of red that goes to Congress. Like that entire sea of red, that's basically what the House of Representatives looks like.
Yes, and I agree with it.
The legislative branch is a check on the presidency.
But if you have them both based off of people, then there's a chance that both of them will become tyrannical, and there is no check on the people being tyrannical.
I think there's
you
a
have
chance
to,
tyrannical.
If we have check and balances,
a hypothetical that's not worth engaging with.
If we have check and balances, we need to check on every part of the government. And a major part of the government, and perhaps the most important part of the government, is the people. There is no check on them other than the Electoral College.
I'm not sure, how Congress isn't to check on the people. I don't know what you mean by check on the people. The people don't have rights to write legislation. They don't. Right, the people just vote. Right, the people with the power is Congress primarily. right? Public offices that have power. That's where you need the checks. The people, all they can do is vote. I don't understand why you need a check on that.
Because they can vote for something that's against their interest.
So can Congress, right? Like, argue your case with the Congress. That's where the checks and balances should be.
Because we have a check on Congress. We have the president.
Then why do you need another check? Why do you need an electoral college?
Because if the people choose everything, then who's checking the people? If Congress is voted on by the people and the president is voted on by the people, there is no check on the people.
This is a silly hypothetical. The reason, okay, so I'm just, again, I have to reboil this for you. Your argument is that democracy should not be trusted because by its very nature, it is prone to giving us tyranny. And the examples you gave of this were Nazi Germany, where the people actually voted for Paul von Hindenburg, and Athenian democracy, where it lasted for 400 years before the people voted for a tyrant.
No, they had voted for tyrants multiple times before that final one.
Okay, and most contemporary democracies, the ones I listed earlier, parliamentary democracies, have been stable, reliable places of human rights. Are there more democracies in the world than there are monarchies right now?
Yes.
Then why aren't they falling apart?
Because it's only been a very short period of time.
How much time do we need before these places fall apart?
I don't know. It is only a matter of time, though. Let's look at the monarchies that are currently in existence. You have the Vatican. That's probably the oldest continuous country right now.
Wait, I'm sorry, the Vatican?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I'm sorry, you missed your part. I was reading something from chat. What did you say?
I'm right now looking at absolute monarchies of the world.
And it seems like most of them have gone away in favor of democracy, right?
Most of them have gone. Yes, most of them have gone away against democracies. But the thing is whether or not which ones have lasted longer.
Well, you said democracy was a new concept, right?
Yes, democracy is a new concept, but historically, it's never lasted that long.
Historically, there hasn't been that many democracies. How could you say it hasn't lasted that long?
Because it's always been looked at as a bad thing because it's been a short-lived thing.
Okay, tell me if you agree with this statement. The democracy of Athens and the democracy of Greek and Roman city-states are different from the democracies we have today, right?
Yes, and the reason it being that our founding fathers, and I don't want to keep discussing that, they designed it that way.
Okay.
Our democracy was designed to be different from them.
I understand that. But the point I'm making is you're alluding to past democracies that have failed that are fundamentally different from the democracy I'm talking about.
What the popular vote democracy?
Well, popular vote. The democracy of Athens was divided into several houses, right? It wasn't just the people deciding everything by well, I think part of it was actually. Or maybe I should say Rome. I don't know. We can go with Roman democracy,
yes.
or Spartan democracy, right? Which the Spartan constitution influenced the democracy. The most Greek. I'm sorry. The Spartan democracy influenced most Greek city-state democracies, right?
The Spartans did not have a democracy.
The Spartan constitution influenced most Greek city-state democracies, is what I said, right? Athenian democracy was an influencing factor for most.
Athenians. I thought you were talking about Spartans. Like the Spartans was
talking about their constitution. They had a constitution. There's actually a resource I sent you. I sent you this in my notes. It was a book by a guy named Tabet or something like that, where he goes into the history of democracy and he starts talking about how Spartan democracies were the foundation principle for most ancient city-state democracies. Right. The reason I'm bringing this up is they were divided into houses, with the people's house occupying the lowest house and being easily vetoable. Most of these democracies were separated by the people's house and then an aristocratic house and an executive house, like a ruler's house, a tyrant's house. I don't know what you'd call it, but they don't resemble the democracies I'm talking about. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what's bothering about this is I have to debate against an ancient idea of democracy that I'm not even defending.
But the ideas of democracy being good, there's a reason we have the balances is because historically it has never worked.
I'm not arguing to get rid of the. This is like I keep repeating myself. I'm not arguing to get rid of the balances. I like the balances.
But you want to get rid of you want more popular vote.
Right. because I like the idea of fundamental equality, which is something I think most democracies have.
But
There's
we
no
do have
citizen-
fundamental equality. It's just we are
No,
voting not
no.
for the president. We're voting for electors.
If your vote counts for more than my vote, we don't have a fundamental equality.
Your vote counts as much as anyone else in your region for voting.
Then it's not a fundamental equality. If it's divided by regions, it's not a fundamental equality, is it?
Calm down.
Then why are Congress isn't fundamentally equal then?
No, it's not. It's divided into several different people. Like, it's not an equal house. You're right. Our Congress is not split 50-50.
So then if we want to get rid of the Electoral College based off the fact it's not fundamentally equal, then we have to get rid of...
Try this again. My problem with the Electoral College is that a person's vote in one state counts for more than a person's vote in another state.
All right, I'm going to interject because we're 5 minutes till. And if we delve into another 2 hours of debating, I think my head might explode.
I think my head might explode too.
I think you might explode as well.
I've already had 3 aneurysms.
And I'm pretty sure the chat's heads might also explode. So before we leave off, I want to answer this Streamlabs. UFO Answer donated $2 to say, Weebo, please tell them that the Supreme Court is a thing and that there are also a check against the legislative and executive branches. And there was... Oh, last question that I wanted to ask. I'm sorry I didn't get to everyone else's questions because we kind of went off on a little tangent at the end there. But the last question I did want to ask of the both of you is name one... Because I don't think we're going to actually have an abolition of the Electoral College, but name one thing about the Electoral College that you would change if it was feasibly possible. I think that would be a good way to end this off.
I do not a winner takes all and do what Nebraska and Maine have done, where it's
district plan.
Yeah, district plan.
I would ideally like the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact to pass in at least 270 electoral votes worth of states.
Okay. So, before we sign off, I just want to thank both of the debaters for coming and being somewhat civil for the most part. And also thank you to the chat for coming out and hanging out with us for the last 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, even if it was a little bit heated at times. I know not everyone got their questions answered. I do apologize for that. But for the sake of time, I want to keep this under 2 hours. Thank you for the donators who donated. The UFO Answer, Mammoth Wrangler, Patrick Meow, Glow in the Dark CIA, Nick Hers, and I think... Yes, that is the end of donators. So thank you, everyone, for coming out. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend. You guys have any last things that you want to say? Shill, whatever?
Good talk, homie.
Thanks, man.
All right.
We should do this again sometime.
I will eat a bullet. It's stressful.
All right. And without further ado, mention my charity stream. That's right. Okay. December 1st, we're doing a charity stream where I will raise $1,000 for charity live on air. And once we reach that goal, I will wax my armpits on stream. Yes, it's going to be painful. Yes, you will enjoy yourself. And yes, it's for a good cause. St. Jude's we're donating to. All of them.
Your armpits are shaved, aren't they?
I'm going to stop shaving 2 weeks out from the stream because if they get too long... No shave
November. Stop now.
Here's the thing, because even if I do wax them, I'm going to have to trim them before I actually wax them too, because otherwise the wax isn't going to work.
I don't care. All of it's on live stream.
Okay, anyway, so wax your pubes too. You know what? That was something that someone put out there as an idea when we were planning this, and I was like, maybe not. I'll tase myself on stream live for money, but no.
I will fly out to do that.
Anyway, thank you everyone for joining me, and thank you for reminding me, UFO, to shill the charity stream. So yeah, that's coming up. Keep your heads up, eyes open. There we go, for whatever that is, or whenever that is. And I'm gonna turn off the stream now. So bye.